Corey, hey man, we are excited to have you on today's podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited about it.
So are we, man. Is we got to meet a little while ago, and we just got a little bit about your story because you were actually asking questions about us. But man, that intrigued us, and today I look forward to kind of diving deep into kind of your story and how you've gotten to where you are today, and the way that you are now able to help a lot of people achieve kind of financial success. So, man, if you don't mind, let's get started. Tell me a little bit about your journey originally with kind of in the financial advisory field. How'd you end up there?
Yeah, well, it's funny, and I'll back up just a smidget just to show you. Like,
Yeah.
I used to be a used car salesman, right? So that kind of used car salesman, and it was almost 22 years ago. That's when my life really changed forever. Is that I went to Hawaii, and my mom was married to this man named Bruce. I call him Bruce Wayne. He wasn't Batman, but he had a lot of money, and I got to this island. He had a house right on the beach in Hawaii, and it was magic. And I was like, "What do you do?" And then he said the magic words. He said he was in real estate and that he owned apartments. And so I left the island thinking he was the big Kahuna, like he had time and money, and he really he had it. And then I read this little book, little purple book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's Bruce." Bruce was a real estate investor, and he figured out how to use leverage real estate. And I was like, and he was self-made. So I was like, gosh, if he can do it, I can do it. And so I went and read all the books that I could. And in 2005, I started my company called Kahuana Investments. Now, my first 3 flips successful, made some money. I took a line of credit, a home line of credit out of one of my personal home, and flipped some homes. And I was like, oh gosh, I made some money. I was so good, I quit my job as a car salesman. And then I bought 3 rental properties. Now I bought 3 rental properties. I used a little portion of my money on each flip that I made. And so now I had 3 rental properties and $600 of income, $200 a piece. And I quit my job. And I realized quickly that I was out of money. And $600 wasn't going to go very far.
Low expenses.
Yeah, hopefully you're making more than $600 a month back then.
Oh my gosh. And so I was like, that was my first problem. And I was like, oh gosh, I'm out of money. And now banks won't lend me any money either because I don't have a job. And it was just so happened that my wife was friends with one of her girlfriends. And this guy was a financial advisor. And I was like, well, like, do you got to have a degree to get like a job? Like as a financial advisor? No, they just want to hire business owners, right? Or people that have business experience. I was like, well, Kahuana Investments has got experience, right? So I leveraged Kahuana Investments to get a job as a financial advisor. And, basically said, if you can pass the test, you get the job. And so that Series 7 and 66 license is the hardest test I've ever studied for. I made a 73, which you got to have a 70 to win, right? So I was like, I studied just enough. But what a wonderful way to come into the world of money is through that financial advisor role, because you learn, Edward Jones taught me so much about what most people are putting their wealth, which I honestly, now that I'm on the other side, I know that it's wrong, at least in my opinion. There's a portion of it. Well, you could probably even argue that, but
you don't you don't need to be PC over here.
Yeah. So here's what I learned. Jones taught me how to network, but at the real end of it, I was a licensed salesperson, and that's the real word for it. Because if you ever listen to a bunch of financial advisors when they get together, all they talk about, how big's your book? What's your book? How much commission did you make off somebody? What kind of life insurance did you sell? How much are you making? It is never about the client. Really rude awakening. It's only about what's in it for them and how big their book is and what they're making in their fees. And so that's what I did from 2005 until 2009 when the Great Recession happened. And when that happened, I quickly realized how much control I really had. Here I was drinking the Kool-Aid saying, I'm going to put you in a balanced portfolio and, saying all the, take a little bit of your
yeah.
stuff, everything they teach you to say that you're so smart. And when that recession happened, everybody's money went to half. So every investment I ever made went to half. And Anthony and Cameron, I'll tell you, it was so bad where I had some people that retired from Intel that had a couple million, $2.5 million of money. They're right at retirement. I invested for them, and they're living, thinking they're going to live out their years. You know what I'm saying? And they come into my office, and the woman is, you can just tell she's just like her face is blank. She's almost sobbing as she's sitting in my chair, and the husband's just like a freaking mess. And I mean, you feel it. And the question they're asking is it enough? Are we going to be okay? And the answer is no. No, you're screwed. Your whole financial thing we built, it is done. And then to add injury to insult, they're like, well, move all the money, put it all in, take it all out, put it into a money market or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, but and then I'm going to charge them a fee for that. Mm-hmm. And just like adding injury to insult. And so I quickly realized that I had no control, and that thing was, it was bad. And my heart left the business. And as soon as my heart left, so did my cells. So There was a day that I got a call at a 10 o'clock appointment with my manager. And I told my wife, I was like, I think I might be getting fired. And I show up at 8 o'clock, and then my secretary can't look at me, guys. And I knew right then that the call was on. And that's when something radically changed. So I actually locked myself in my office. First, I printed a client list. Smartest thing I ever did, right? I put that in my car and secured it. But it was in that moment that I realized that real estate was going to be, like I said, I need to focus on real estate. And from every book that I'd ever read, that most millions were made in real estate in down economies. And I said, we were in one that I'd probably never see again. And if I didn't go all in right now, I would always beat myself up. And so I left that, 10 o'clock interview, got fired, and I was like Rocky. I was like, hands up, and, followed by terror, right? That was like 5 minutes of happiness, followed by like terror. Like, I had to tell my wife, that I was going to go full time in real estate. But I learned some things along the way. I learned that control is important. And what I really felt is that you don't have any levers in the financial world to really pull. You're just kind of at the mercy of the market. And I look back at that, so like, man, how many people are in that scenario right now? And like, they're building their wealth, and there's a financial advisor on the other end of that. And do they really have any, are they really getting any advice? Or is it just a slick salesperson that's taken their money and invested it in some stuff? But after they do that, they really don't care, which is what I found is what mostly happens most of the time. And so when I got in the vehicle of real estate, I started off doing the single family fix and flips, mm-hmm. and doing notes and deeds of trust and having people invest in that. And that seemed like and I really took the skill set that I learned, because I understood money at that point, of what returns and what people were looking for, and what it took to put it together. And then eventually we started doing a lot bigger deals. So we started syndicating apartments, and which is what all we do now is we have $230 million of assets that we owned, and we find and marry that to capital. And investors really are target avatars, people that were in the stock market that want true diversification.
Yeah. Corey, you mentioned something there that I'd like to back up on. Is you said that you kind of ran out of the job feeling like Rocky, right? Yeah. I'm gonna take over the world. And from my point of view, right, I would think that you're kind of like, man, I got to pay my bills, right? So you're approaching real estate kind of from a personal perspective. How did you transition into maybe something bigger, right? Like, hey, I can help some other people. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so man, it was really crazy at the time, because it really was scary, because in that office, I made the deep down, I'm telling you everything that I am commitment. I made it to myself that I would do whatever it took to be successful in real estate. As long as it was legal and ethical, there was no thing that I was not willing to do. And I took that mindset, And then I said, okay. And then I actually analyzed. I'm like, where am I at today? Where am I at right now? And I was like, okay, I don't have a whole lot of money, so I can only last so much. I got to start finding a way to do this. So I'm feeding my mind. But what I was doing is I was networking at the RIAs, Real Estate Investors Associations, but I'm not no dummy. So I'm going to the RIAs and I'm going to the guys that are running the program and saying, hey, can you point out the top 3 or 4 guys here? And they're like, yeah, well, Bob, this, and this. And so guess who sat right next to him? I did. And I'm like, what do you guys like to buy at, right? What's your average rehab? And I'm just writing notes. You're like, how much profit do you like to make? Where's your target market, right? And like, I started building my database of what they were looking for. I was like, guys, I find deals like this all the time. Wink, wink, right? And so I was like, would you pay me a fee if I could find a deal like that? And they said, yeah. So I left those meetings and I would go to I was running a BNI group with a business networking group.
Yeah.
Because I was a financial advisor. So I go to the realtor. I was like, hey, listen, Martha, I need your MLS login. Okay. I'm not a realtor, but I'm like, I need your access. You're not going to want to do all the work that I'm going to do, Martha. I will let you write up every deal, though. I'll let you write up every offer. And so I started scouring the MLS for short sales and REOs. And at that point, I was just wholesaling them to guys that had money at the RIA.
Mm-hmm.
Until something dramatically changed. This is what changed my life. Is there was a guy named Carl, and I used to play racquetball with this guy. And now I got into the game where I was actually wholesaling, and these were good deals. They just weren't my deals. I didn't have the money to put it all together. Mm-hmm. And Edward Jones had locked down that client list. They're like, you cannot bring anybody over. We will sue you. I had a 2-year non-compete. So I needed to find someone else. And I was playing racquetball with a guy that lived in a retirement community. And I asked him, I'm like, you see what I'm doing? I'm wholesaling. The guys that I'm doing all the work for are making 30 grand a flip. And I'm making $3,000. I'm like, I want to flip the script. Can I can probably pay someone 12% return and secure it with a note and deed of trust. I'm like, do you know anybody? Well, the next day, this guy, Carl, he calls me up. He goes, hey, Corey, do you still want to do that 12%? And I was like, oh my God, Carl found somebody. He goes, Corey, you don't know this. He goes, but my home's totally paid for. I can borrow money at 3.5%. If you pay me 12, I can make a spread. How much money do you need? And then I'm like, well, see, I got no money for the payments. I got no money for the rehab. I'm like, I need it all. So I was like, Carl, I need $85,000. And there was a slight pause. And he's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, where do you want me to send it? And for me, that was a pivotal moment because I grew up poor. I grew up in a small town in West Plains, Missouri. Going into when Carl did that to me and it sent that money, it broke every limiting belief that I'd ever put on myself of, was I good enough? Would people trust me? Would they even know that I had filed bankruptcy before when I had a marriage at 23, right? To a wrong person, right? And what I found out is nobody cared. So I equate that moment to going into a telephone booth as Clark Kent. And I come out of that thing like Superman, like, I raised private money. And it was crazy because, when we put blinders on ourselves all the time, like people, we put these limiting beliefs, these blinders, and I got that piece of money. And then I was like, these scales came off my eyes and I could see again. And I was like, I can't be the only guy raising money for stuff like this. Who else is doing it? And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, there's a lot of people doing it. I'm like, what tools do they have? What are they saying? And so immediately I all of a sudden become a student and I got really good at learning what you had to have a credibility kit. You need to have a private money program. And I started getting the tools. And a year and a half later, I had $3 million on the street flipping homes.
Wow. Corey, the part that I love there is the limiting beliefs, right? And just that kind of thing that clicks in somebody's heads. I think so many times in life, right, when somebody's getting started or presented with a challenge, there's really 2 ways that people react, right? Is they kind of shrink away or they just face it and go for it. And so far, you've kind of shown us two obstacles that have been presented to you. In the first one, you came out as Rocky,
Yeah.
and the second one, you came out as Superman, right?
Yeah.
So both of those are impressive. I think you've got a track record of kind of responding to adversity here.
Well, I think you have to, right? So if entrepreneurship or anytime you take control of even your money or your finances or all those types of things, the things you guys teach as well, knowledge is power. And I think, what I try to do is surround myself with good knowledge. And once I understood that that was the precursor, right? To call my limiting beliefs, I needed to get more knowledge, kind of get my base more solid, and then taking action was the next steps, right? And really taking massive action quickly and being willing to fail. Now, I'll tell you the best thing that ever happened to me is I married a wonderful woman that loved me despite all my faults, because when I would fail and make mistakes, I was so thankful that I had a wonderful wife that would, mend me with her words of wisdoms, her songs of praise, and she would, kind of get me back on track. And then she'd kick me out the door and say, go get them. Right. So I had permission to fail. And what I've learned in my entrepreneurship journey is that the more I fail, the better I become.
Mm.
So I've learned as failure is just part of if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough.
Well said. Man, as an entrepreneur, right? I no wonder why you felt like a superhero, right? I've been married. I married my high school sweetheart, and same thing, right? As an entrepreneur, you get beat up out there, right? So you
It
go
is
home
not
and you
for
kind of
the,
complain a little
yeah,
bit, and then
it's
if
not
you're
for the
doing the
weak.
right one, she says, "Get back up and go do it again," right?
Corey, I just want to touch back on your extent of being a financial planner. So you were in real estate before that, and then you were in real estate after that. Like, tell us from a perspective of a financial planner, they they really or rarely recommend real estate. Can you
Yes.
maybe atone to maybe why that might be?
Well, it's called selling away. All right. And then here's the real thing is when you're a financial advisor, and this is what was really weird. I I gave up on my dream. When I became a financial advisor, I didn't give up completely. I just said, okay, I need to pause my real estate ambitions because I need to go make income. Now it's like when I start making income, I go buy more real estate. That was my mindset behind the move with Edward Jones. It's like, oh, you got to have a job to go do real estate, but that's not true, by the way. But and I was actually forced to make a decision, from getting fired. But what I learned, what they teach you at becoming a financial advisor is you sell what the house has, right? Which is all paper assets, stocks, bonds. If you said you want to do real estate, I was like, well, you should do a REIT. You should buy a REIT, right? And here's the real thing is that in the financial advisor world as a planner, it's all about assets under management. It's keeping everything in house. Do not let it leave the coop. And so if you came to me as your client, if my client came in and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing real estate, I was like, oh my God, that sounds risky. I would scare the bejesus out of them because I know that that's going to work pretty much, right? Like, what about you want to use your IRA? Oh my, what happens if you lose your qualifying deal, all the fees, all the fines, like here's a much better, you should just get this REIT. You should just get this REIT, a real estate investment trust, because I can sell it to you today, but you're trained to be a sales guy. And it really is, especially with Edward Jones, because they were all about A shares and they weren't really, I would say the financial world has changed a lot where it's managed money, right? So they put you in an account, they get a fee, 1% or so or whatever on all assets. And I think that's a better route, but I still believe that all they're doing is selling paper assets. And it really is not, there's no leverage. Think about this. Like, I can go buy real estate and I can go get an 80% loan and then only put 20% down. Does that happen in the financial world? No. right? And you start looking at all the benefits of being, even with what you guys talk about in your infinite wealth, and trying to, start playing the game like rich people play. Because I'm telling you, very wealthy people, they don't play stocks, bonds. Usually, they buy businesses. They want to own things. They just play it differently. And when you really understand that, and you start saying to yourself, I should be playing the game that wealthy people are playing. I think that changes
they're
everything.
Buying real assets.
Yes. Yep. And they're trying to save on taxes. Like, let's talk about the T word, right? Because that's what wealthy people do. It's all about capital preservation, making money on your money, having advisors that really give you advice. Because financial advisors, whatever advice they have is very limited because they don't understand business, right? And I think that's the challenge in that world. And I'm not trying to beat it up, but I'm just I came from it and I understand it a lot, is that there's not really a whole lot of great advice coming from that community. It's just what they've been told to say.
Corey, we get a lot of people that call us that I would say are either very well established kind of in real estate or they're brand new. You just made a comment there as far as kind of the traditional financial advising has very poor advice. What's maybe some advice you might give somebody that's looking to just get started?
Get into start researching real estate, how to buy it, how to own it. I just believe if you start most wealthy people will take their investments into their own hands. Like, wealthy people want to be involved in their investing. They don't want to pass it off, right? They want to be in control. They understand the value of being in control of their investments. They can still be passive, right? So like, we do syndications. I have a lot of people that will invest in our syndications. They like the benefits of being a passive investor because they don't want to do all the day-to-day grind stuff. But what they do want is all the benefits of owning that. They get a K1 return. So it's a partnership, right? They're a limited partner, but they understand the values of getting, tax benefits, of being able to get wealth and to make above average returns. And most people think, in the financial advisor world, they'll tell you that 6 to 8 is what you're looking for. 6 to 8%? Are you kidding me? I want to vomit, right? We all know that we can do much better when we're in control and doing, using real estate as that vehicle. I find that real estate is a true vehicle for growing wealth. It's probably the easiest to do and the most scalable. And most, if you look at a lot of self-made multimillionaires, I think most of them will have real estate in their portfolio. They got there through real estate or businesses.
Yeah. Oh, it's something like 90-something%. Yeah, it's amazing. Corey, the question I had, or the thought that I had there was, you kind of mentioned poor background, kind of building this business. Was there a moment when you were like, I'm there, right? Like, maybe I'm arrived, like maybe I could take a deep breath, right? Because I think a lot of people that are just getting started out, as they look at this and they feel like they're running scared, they're running on thin margins, right? Was there a point or a threshold that you were like, hey, this worked out for me?
My first big deal when I actually sold it, I would say I had a minute for that, but I didn't really relish in it. So I bought my first apartment complex in 2011. I bought it for $3.2 million. I raised $1.4 million of private capital for that deal. And, we owned it for almost 5 years. And it was really in year 4 and 5 that we started really getting cash flow and it started making money. At that point, I was just, focused on we're buying other assets and getting things in the hopper. But in 2000, I think it was 16, we sold that property. We sold it for $8.8 million, right? So we made, 4 point something, or I don't know. I think I made personally like $2.5 million, right, of my portion of that deal with my partners. And that was the first time that I had a really big payday. And in fact, it closed when me and my wife were in Sturgis. We were in the motorcycle rally, right? So,
oh man,
I had a Harley. We'd ridden mine there, and we closed while we were in Sturgis, right? We'd already pre-signed some of the paperwork and stuff, and it was I remember it was a really surreal moment because like we did it, and we were at like the Harley dealership, and there was a bunch of vendors, and I looked at my wife. I said, "Can I do something without you asking how much it's going to cost?" Because I wanted to upgrade I wanted to get a custom job done on my motorcycle. And so she said, okay. And so we shipped my bike to a guy that, we let him take it home. And 2 years later, I got it back, but it was amazing.
2 years
And
later?
yeah, it was 2 years later. I had to wait 2 years.
Hey, that is
Hey,
commitment.
listen, I was like, is it done yet? Is it done yet? And I was so mad until the day he delivered it. Then I was like, all sins are forgiven. Right. Because it is so beautiful. Oh my God. And it was just a stupid gift to myself. But it reminds me, but on my gas tank, it says the journey is the reward. And I've lived by that motto now. I really truly love that motto of real estate's a journey, or investing, wealth building is a journey. And you get better at it as you start to learn and kind of grow in what works, what doesn't work, and what your appetite for it is, right? And how much work do you put into it, and how much work do you want to put into it? And for me, it's the epitome of how I kind of, use my life in an example of there's ups and downs, but when you look back, you're like, wow, we've come a long way from the car lot,
Yeah.
And wealth building is something that most people, when they get to that point, they decide that, hey, I want to do it. There's a right way to do it. There's some steps you can take. There's education that you can get that'll help you thrive and succeed. And that's what we've done.
The sentiment you gave there was the journey is the reward, which I really liked, Corey. Also, what I heard there was kind of that first one was kind of the one that you were able to kind of take a deep breath. So I'm going to assume that right up until that point, your why was like, man, I got to make some money.
I just need to pay my bills.
What's your why now? Like, how does that change? What is it? What does it become?
Oh, that's a great question. So where I'm at now, I don't even care about money, right? So money is we use it as we count it, like we keep score. I like playing the game of Monopoly. I love Monopoly, dude. I'll stop buying the greenhouses. I only buy the red stuff now, right? But I have a thing. It's called Supplier of Fun. That's what drives me. I play the game and will continue probably to play it till I die because I love it. But B is I love to give my friends and people that I care about experiences. I like to supply the fun. We took we still live. I still live in the same neighborhood that I've lived for the last 16 years. Right? It is a working man's neighborhood. Okay, it's not the Taj Mahal. I don't have a multi-million-dollar house. Okay, I live in the same house. That's where my kids have grown up. One of the best things I ever did was keep us there because my kids didn't get spoiled or ruined on what money can do, right? Or the influence of other people that have a lot of money, right? My kids always had to be humble. I wanted to teach them how to be humble because I grew up with nothing. And so my biggest thing was I needed to pass the baton well, right? So they could, carry that torch on and to be humble about it. But we took all our neighbors to Hawaii. Why? Because we could. Right. And we rented a big house. I paid for it. They insisted that they pay for their flights. I paid for the accommodations and I paid for all our activities that we did. And we had a blast. And to me, that's what drives me. Like, I like those moments. I like the moments where someone says, hey, let's go to blank. And I'm like, great. That sounds like a great idea. I got it booked. Like it happened when someone was like, let's go to Mardi Gras. I'm like, oh, that sounds great. I've never been. Bucket list. Let's book it. Oh, I got the VRBR right now. Like, can we all go? It's hooked up. And to me, those are the drivers that I look for in my personal life now. That's what keeps me up and keeps me going.
That's awesome, Corey. Thanks for sharing. I want to point out that in order to do that, not only do you need to have the money, but you also need to have the time. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that are making they're making good money in their W-2, right? But they're working 80 hours a week, and they could afford to do some of these things financially, but they can't afford to it time-wise, which is kind of one of the things or the advantages of creating that passive income, where you don't have to exchange your time for money, that can allow you to do those things with the ones you love.
It sets you free, right? What cash flow does for you is it truly will set you free. And I've been free for a long time. Now, I still work. I do. I work Monday through Friday, actually Monday through Thursday. But I've learned to live by my calendar, meaning so this is what I've done in effective, and I started this probably about maybe 4 years ago. I took my personal life and I laid it down. I said, okay, I want my trips that I want to do 3 or 4 big trips a year. I got my kids' sports. I've got, date night with the wife. I don't want to work. I want to start my work at 9:00. I want to end at 4:00. I don't want to work Fridays, right? And then my business has to fit in the cracks. It's the only way I'll do it, right? I learned to say no. 2 letters, 1 word, powerful, hard to say though.
Yeah.
And when you can master no, I don't want to do that. No, I'm not gonna I'm very now regimented on my timepiece because I've put that in my schedule. And for people that are listening, if you got the job, it is okay. I did too at one point in time. But you plan your escape. And I always say you have 1 foot where you're at, but you need to firmly put that other foot where you want to go. And then you start leaning it to where eventually you can take off the other foot and you go completely in that possession of the cash flow. And that's done by taking baby steps, right? Getting there slowly over time. It took me a while, but now that I'm here, I mean, it's the best.
Corey, if somebody's listening right now and they're looking to plan their escape, right, they're looking to you, right? We've got you on here for a reason because you're great at what you do, right? And you've got a ton of resources. Can you outline some of those resources that are available to somebody if they're listening right now?
Yeah. So we educate. So we have a podcast called the Multifamily Legacy Podcast. Great podcast where we teach and coach and let anybody, we teach what we do, teach how to become an owner operator, all that stuff. And then also, I would love to be able to give out my book. Can I give out my book, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, we have a book called Copy Your Way to Success. I think if you're watching right now, it's called Copy Your Way to Success, Standing on the Shoulders of Giants. If I go back to when I was a young kid, I was never, and really, this is me in my business life, I've never been that smart. I never had great ideas, right? But I'm telling you, I'm a master copier. Like, my teachers hated it, right? I'd be like with my friend in math, I'd be like, dude, what's the answer to number 5, right? Like, hold on. And I never copied from dumb people. I only copied from very, very smart people. Mm-hmm. And so what I learned in my youth is helped me in my business life tremendously is that I didn't have all the tools, but I was great at implementing things that have already worked, right? And so to get that book, if you'll text the word book to 480-500-1127, we'll send it to you for free.
Go and give that one more time, Corey.
Yeah, text the word book, BOOK, to 480-500-1127.
Awesome. Corey, tell us a little bit about Kahuana Investments, right? We know you're in the syndication kind of multifamily space, but do you guys have a niche kind of in your portfolio? What do you guys like?
Yeah, we do two things really well. We own and operate student housing that runs up into the colleges. So we find properties close to colleges, and we rent them by the bed. And I've done that for a while now, and like that industry, that market. Obviously, during COVID, we got hit a little bit, but like that industry rebounded quickly, and it's really a great piece. And then we just do regular multifamily. I would say B-class properties, so things that are built from 1980s to 2005, 2006. seems to be a nice little niche right there. But we do it mainly in the Midwest and the South, in the markets that make sense. And then we partner with passive investors to give them ownership and to create syndications that work. And everybody gets to win.
No, that student housing I think is very interesting. It's a different niche because when my daughter was in college, we did the same thing where we had rented per the room or the bed. But it was nice because we had our own lease, so we didn't have to worry if the other roommates didn't pay, and the door was locked. And so and typically, I don't like to use the word recession proof, but during a recession, people will go back to school because they can't get a job.
What's coming right now, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So as we're coming into this, what's coming up with our economy now, I feel like we're positioned really well. And that is exactly what will happen is in times of uncertainty, enrollment in colleges always tends to go up. And here's the thing with student housing too. So it's the biggest thing you have to look out for is you want to be as close to the college as possible, right? The closer to the college, the better, right? So we really try to find assets that are positioned really well. And because anything that's farther out, if the economy really shrinks, or the biggest thing is not everybody's going to college anymore, right?
Yeah.
But so there's, you don't want to be too far out. But here's what I know is no matter what the economy is doing, when kids get to 19 and they're going to go to school, they're going to school. Mom and dad are going to send them there. And if anything, the kind of stuff that we buy, we don't buy the Taj Mahals, right? Mm-hmm. We buy the nice property that is, I'll call it affordable, right? We have some ones that are a little bit more than others, but, I would say the average bed is probably $650 to $800 would be the most that we charge. And like from my daughter right now, she's in NAU, we pay $1,000 a month. So I don't own that building, but I think we own stuff that makes sense and it's affordable. And then the thing is you got to you supply it with great people. So that is really a people business. You got to manage all the girls, all the, the craziness that goes on with students because they do break stuff, right?
Yeah.
They throw parties. But it's all manageable. And really what mom and dad want is someone to watch and take care of their babies, and let them get a good education.
It's also cool on that student housing, they signed a 12-month lease, even though they're only there maybe 10 months. And it's signed by the parent. So
you got to get in the game, don't you?
Yeah, they give a 21-year-old or 23-year-old sign on the lease and they may skip out. You have the backing of the parents. So
it really is. And that's the beauty of it, right? It's 12-month leases, even though kids are there, again, are not there for usually the whole year. And that the personal guarantee that mom and dad put on it means that if there's damages, which a lot of times there is, mom and dad pay. They're not going to ruin their 720 score, 820 score on $500, $700 of damage, right? They're just going to pay.
No, believe me, there was a charge for like $500 in my daughter's room, which I thought was BS. But to be honest, I didn't have much leverage, and I'm like, I can't afford to have that ding on my credit. As much as I hated it, I wrote that check. But but just to what you're saying, Corey, hopefully you have one in Reno, but.
I wish I did, my friend, but those stories are real, right? And and it's different. It's funny because from your perspective, so my daughter's in college too, so I feel this because she's like, oh, I locked my keys out. I'm like, another $125 rekey fee? Gosh, dang it, honey! Like, stop that, right? But I do the same thing at my units, right? So I was like, I understand what they're doing, honey. This is going to cost us money. You got to get better.
Yeah. No, it's a good model.
Corey, if somebody wants more info or somebody wants to contact you, where can they go?
Yeah, the best way, I don't normally do this, but I'll do it. You can just email me directly, Corey@KahuanaInvestments.com. Or really, KahuanaInvestments.com is our website. That's the best place to learn more about our company, what we do. If you want to learn about investing with us or passively being a part of our deal. We have a process. We don't just let anybody in. We really take the time to get to know you. We try to have a accredited investor relationship with you. We want to know about what your dreams are, your goals, what you're trying to do, and make sure that we're a fit. Because honestly, it's not for everybody, but we do a lot of vetting for that process.
Cool.
Corey, I got one last question, man. Pretty
Yeah.
open-ended, but what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud, and this is gonna be weird. This has nothing to do with real estate. I'm the most proud that I was a full-time dad. Right. If I look back, I'm so glad I got in real estate when I did. My kids were young, and I've always put that piece. Like, I was my kids' soccer coach, their football coach. I went all in on the things that I felt like really mattered, which was my time component. Kids do not trade in money. They could care less how much you make. The only currency they really trade in is time. And I learned that early on because I had a dad that gave it to me as well. Even though he worked all the time, he would still find time right after work to be my coach and to be involved. And I was like, he was a great example of what I thought success looked like, is giving that time and devoting it to your kids. And I would say that's my most proudest moment, is being a full-time dad and trying to do a good job in that component. It makes me the most proud. It gives me much joy.
Oh, that's awesome, Corey.
Well said, Corey, man. We're proud of you too.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
That's why we had you on, man. Really appreciate you kind of coming on today and sharing what you guys are doing over there. We're big fans of it, and hopefully some people are listening and can reach out to you. But again, Corey, where can they find you one last time?
Just go to kahuanainvestments.com. And guys, again, I want to thank you for the time. I will tell you, man, this business is crazy. It goes ups and downs, and there's different things going. But even with you guys, you had you guys on my podcast, and I will tell you, what you guys do and teach is phenomenal. And I highly recommend you guys as well, because I just character, doing good in the world. You guys have it in spades. And to me, that's who you want to surround yourself with, is people just like you. And it means so much that you guys are out there educating and sharing and giving back.
Well said. Thanks, Corey. Appreciate that.
Rock and roll. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Go make it a fantastic day.
Take care.
All right. Well done, Corey. Thanks.